Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys are having a great night. It was a beautiful day here in Iowa. We are glad that you guys are here with us tonight for our peer-to-peer meeting. We are having a little different format than we normally do. So if you've been with us in some of our online virtual peer-to-peer meetings, this looks a little bit different. Normally we are all able to see each other and interact a little bit, but tonight we have so many people signed up because we have our amazing guest speaker, Tom Copeland, with us. And we are going to have him talk to us a little bit about all of the COVID-19 and how that's affecting our small businesses and the grants and loans that are coming out. He shared with us that things are changing real quickly, so he has the newest up-to-date information to share with us. So we're glad that he is here with us tonight. We're going to go through a little bit of technology stuff if you're not familiar with this format, and Monique's going to lead us through that. So kind of we'll show you where you'll be able to interact with us. You'll be able to type in questions, raise your hand, things like that if there's something that you need. So Monique is going to take us through that. So welcome.
Thanks, Rebecca. So we're going to go through a few things about your audio. Right now, you should be able to hear us, but we cannot hear you. If you're connecting to your audio through your computer speakers, please make sure the audio bubble is selected. If you're connecting to audio through your telephone, please make sure the phone call bubble is selected and call the dial number provided. You'll see the dial number, the access code, and the PIN. They will ask for all three of those. If you're having any issues at all with your audio, please email me at CCR&R@mitsu.org, and I will be sure to help you with that. Also, if you're having audio issues, go ahead and type in the question box as well, but the email would be the fastest way for me to get back to you. Right now, we're going to practice raising your hand, so please raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, it looks like most of you are getting that. We may use the hand raise option a little later if as questions are coming in. And so in the question area, if we have questions during the meeting tonight, you can type them in the question box. You'll see there's a question box on your dashboard there. So right now, just to practice, to make sure we kind of have that have an idea where that's at, I'm going to have you type your first and last name in just to go through that a little bit for a little practice. Yeah, it looks like everybody's getting that okay. Again, if you're having any issues with that, just email me at ccr@mitsu.org. We'll be sure to help you. Okay, so Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and let you take and cover introductions, and then we'll turn it over to Tom.
Great, thanks, Monique. So hi, I'm Rebecca Hungate with Child Care Resource Referral. I'm the Business Development Specialist up here in Northwest Iowa. And tonight we have a few of my amazing coworkers here with me. We have Kim Schrader, who is going to be monitoring the message box. And she's a child care consultant up in our tippy top counties in the far northwest corner. And then we have Paige Duncan, who's going to be helping with the question box. So as you're typing in your question, she's going to be helping navigate that with Tom and his questions, or anything else that you guys have questions on that is coming in. And then we have Monique back on the side with the TA. So thank you guys for joining us here tonight. Bigger crew than we normally have on our peer-to-peers, but we're glad that you guys are all here with us helping out. So kind of without further ado, Tom, I think we're going to turn it over to you, and let's get started on all these questions that we have. So thanks guys for being here, and thank you, Tom, for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you see my screen at this point?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Glad everybody could join us. It's also been a gorgeous day in Minnesota. My wife's still out in the garden because it's so nice, so I'm inside talking to you guys. I am an attorney who has been working for the last 30-something years trying to help childcare folks be more successful as a business, and I do that through traveling around the country, although not so much now, as well as doing a lot of webinars and answering questions. So if you have questions after this webinar, I'm happy to try to answer them. Here is my phone number. Here is my email address. I don't charge anything for answering questions. I'm happy to try to do that. I've fielded probably at least a couple hundred questions in the last week or 10 days. I've also written a lot about the coronavirus and various resources on my website, tomcopelandblog.com, where I've also posted hundreds of articles on all aspects of the business side of family childcare. I have a Facebook page where every time I post something on my website, it will appear on my Facebook page, and you can ask me questions on Facebook. I get a lot of questions that way as well. I'm not providing you with individual tax or legal or other professional services. I'm going to be talking about the loan programs and unemployment as a focus, but I'm happy to answer other questions as they go along. All right, so as everybody knows, this is very stressful, very, very stressful. The financial impact is just beginning. People are going out of business. People are caring for many fewer children. I think a bunch of people are not coming back. It's really bad news. You don't have to remain open. I just got an email 20 minutes ago. This provider was concerned about her husband's health and her health, and we're just worried. And she said, "Can I close?" Absolutely, you can close. Can you say no to a family? Yes. One provider said to me today, one of the kids in her program told her that her grandmother was now in her family's home, and she was nervous about the child being with the grandmother and then showing up in her program. So her question was, can she tell the family, "I'm sorry, I can't care for your child as long as the grandmother's in your home until this gets sorted out?" And I said, absolutely. This week, Congress is set to pass a new law that will put new money into two SBA forgivable loan programs that we're going to talk about. We don't know exactly what day this will be finalized, but it could happen within the next 2 or 3 days. Hopefully, things will get better. What I'm going to discuss is what the available resources are out there now. Your state may be using some of the federal money it's gotten for child care services to provide other benefits services. Overall, it's still not enough. Eventually, this virus will pass, and hopefully, things will then get better. I'm not going to be talking about medical issues dealing with the virus. The Centers for Disease Control is the best place to go for that information. Your state child care agencies may probably also do have other guidance around the medical side of things. But I don't know anything about the medical stuff, so I won't be talking about that. So we're going to be discussing these two SBA loan programs, the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. Then we're going to talk about unemployment in Iowa. So as we're going along, please post your questions under the heading that says questions. I'll be looking at that throughout. We'll be screening other questions, and depending on how this goes, if we have time at the end, I can call on you. I can unmute your mic if you wanted to raise your hand and ask me a question that way, so I could hear you if you'd like. So these are the two programs. You're eligible for both. They can provide thousands of dollars of money. Both programs are run out of money. And as I just said, Congress is just set now to put more money in. So they're about to gear up again. First one, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I'm going to refer to this as the Disaster Loan Program. You are eligible to get $1,000 in a forgivable loan for each employee, and you can count yourself as an employee. You can use this money for whatever you want for your business. You apply online through the Small Business Administration. It's not through a bank. You simply fill out an application form that we're going to go through and send it in electronically to the SBA. To get the application form, you go to the SBA website, sba.gov. You look at the top of the screen and where it says COVID-19 relief options and additional resources. Now, if you go there now, you'll see disaster loan. But if you click on that, it'll say we're not accepting applications now because they're not funded yet again. So you got to go back there, and I'll be announcing immediately on my website, or you may hear it on the news, that the money has been approved. It'll probably take the SBA a day or two to kind of get the gears running again, and then they would open up their website for new applications. You can always try to call the SBA. Here's their phone number, and here's their email address. I imagine it's going to be difficult, if not practically impossible, to get through, but maybe you can get through that way if you want. Now, if you want more than $1,000, you could get more money through this program, but then you'd have to pay it back. The $1,000 that you get if you fill out the form is not does not have to be paid back. It's a forgivable loan. If you want more than that, and I've had providers ask me, I want to build an addition, I want to remodel a basement, I want to buy a fence, whatever, you can borrow money through this program, but now you'd have to pay it back, and the interest rate is 3.75% over 30 years. The SBA may well ask you for more financial information if you want more than $1,000. The problem is, when you fill out the form, it doesn't ask you how much money you want. And so right now, it's just going to automatically send you $1,000. And so now what? Well, in talking to people, the best we can say is if you want more money under this program, you'll need to contact the SBA directly through email or phone, because the application form won't help with that. Now, before you borrow money, particularly in times like this, I would urge you to take a little caution here, because you'll eventually have to pay it back. And do you know how stable your finances are going to be to pay back the money? And 3.75% is probably pretty good, but still, you'll have to pay it back. Now, what if you've already applied for this program earlier, but you haven't heard anything back? And that's not uncommon. Well, now what? Well, it's possible you still might get some money, the $1,000. It's possible that the SBA is just, they were just flooded by hundreds of thousands of applications, and maybe they're still processing it, and maybe you might get a check in the next week or so. It's possible, we don't know. Or did your application get in, and by the time they got it, they were out of money? We don't know that either. So if you applied for this loan before March 29th, the SBA has said reapply. Now, what if you've applied after March 29th, but still haven't heard anything? Well, my best advice would be to reapply anyway. Now, I've written about this in some detail on my website, and here's a link to that article. I'm going to be writing some more about this in the next day or two, and so I will be updating things. So watch my website for the latest about this. Now, let's talk about filling out the form, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it. So I want to discuss this in some detail. So what I need to do is go here. So here is the disaster loan form. All right, and I'm hesitant. Let's see, what am I doing here? I'm going back and forth here between this. So first, here's the first page of the form. So it's asking, what are you? You're a sole proprietor. If you're a corporation, then you would say you'd check off box number 1 that you have less than 500 employees. And then the second part, you got to check yes, you got to check all the boxes rather on this second section of this page here, because if you don't, then you got a problem. You're not eligible. But they're pretty straightforward questions. You're not engaged in illegal activity. So the next page, you're asked to put in information about yourself. It says organizational type. That's a sole proprietor. You're a sole proprietor, unless you know that you're incorporated. You might be incorporated, but if you don't know, you're a sole proprietor. Then it's asking you whether you're a nonprofit. No. Are you a franchise? No. And then it asks for your gross revenues. And I put in 50,000 bucks. So what is that? Your gross revenues are based on your Schedule C from last year, from 2019. And your gross revenues are line 7. You're going to be putting in other income on line 1, and you might put in your food program income on line 6. But in the end, your gross income before expenses, that's what gross income means, is line 7. And so that's, you look back on your last year's tax return, you take the number from line 7 and you put it on the form. All right. So what if you haven't filed your 2019 tax return? Well, you could put down the number from 2018. If you haven't filed 2018, that becomes a little problematic, and I would tell you to go ahead and try to fill out your 2019 Schedule C, even if you haven't filed your taxes, and you probably will be able to relatively easily determine how much money you made last year, how much money from parents, from the food program, from the subsidy program. Look in your records and come up with a number and put it on the Schedule C and put it in here in this form. The rest of the form, it's probably a little difficult to read. Let's see, what can I do here? Here we go. Hi, how about that? So it's asking you other questions. Cost of goods, and that's caused some confusion. You don't have cost of goods. It's possible that on the back side of your Schedule C, you did enter something in under cost of goods. Sometimes people put in food there. Well, you're really not selling anything, so you really shouldn't have any cost of goods. But if for some reason you did put something there under cost of goods, then go ahead and put something here. Next, it says rental properties. You don't have rental properties. Well, I suppose it's possible if you have commercial properties, but probably not. Nonprofit, cost of operation, 0. Combined annual operating expenses, blah, blah, blah. This refers to faith-based organizations. So as a family child care provider, 0. List the secular social services provided by the faith-based entity. Well, you're not a faith-based entity, 0. Compensation from other sources received as a result of the disaster, 0. Provide brief description of these other sources, no, 0. Your address, your other information, email, date business established. When did you first start caring for kids? Current ownership status. That's the same date you started caring for kids. Business activity. There's a pull-down menu and you say that you can't see childcare there. So the closest thing you could do is choose education services. And then after you choose that, you'll see an option that says daycare. So great, click daycare. Then it asks number of employees. This is critical. If you don't have any employees, you put down 1 for yourself, because that's going to mean you're going to get $1,000. If you have another employee, put down 2, and you're going to get $2,000. All right. Let me pause right here. Are there any questions that I'm missing? And I'm looking here. Yeah, if we haven't already applied for this loan, haven't heard, should we reapply? Yeah, I'd probably say yes. Somebody comments, contacting the SBA for more money will not work. I received the $1,000 grant and called for more information on additional funds. They can't tell you anything. Well, I was talking with a national advocate about this, and we were just going back and forth about, well, how can somebody get extra money? We were scratching our heads and we're looking at the regulations, and it just wasn't clear. And so just 2 minutes ago, I said, well, try to contact the SBA and ask them. And this person's saying, they can't tell us anything. Well, I hear you. Thanks for sharing that. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's worth a shot. Maybe with this new money coming in, maybe they'll say they now can provide more assistance than the $1,000. Question, I started my business in August of 2019. How will this affect my eligibility? My husband and I filled our 2019 taxes together. Okay, well, that's a good question. So on this page, it asks for your gross income. So you started in August, so your gross income is going to be lower than if you were in business the whole year. But your gross income really doesn't matter to be able to get the $1,000. You have to have something for gross income. Let's put it that way. So you're okay, the fact that you started in August. Question, do I have to be registered with the state to be eligible for assistance? No. I assume you have to be legally exempt from any registration. But as long as you're legally exempt, you're good to go. You can get the $1,000. Question, what if my husband works with me as a co-provider? Well, if the question is he an employee? The answer would be no, unless you were treating him as an employee. In other words, you were withholding Social Security taxes. You were filing quarterly and annual payroll tax forms. If you were treating him officially as an employee with that in that manner, and then you closed your business, yes, now that's $2,000. $1,000 for you, $1,000 for him. Question, we are a 2-provider partnership with 1 employee. Can we apply? I'm trying to remember what I heard about partnerships. The partnership doesn't apply, individuals apply. Can both partners apply? Ooh, I don't want to guess on that one. So with that question, if you would send me an email, I will check it out, because I know I read it somewhere and I don't remember. Question, do family members who are subs assistants count as employees? Good question. Only if they're treated as employees with regards to payroll tax forms. So, you know, you might be hiring your 16-year-old, your 19-year-old, your mother-in-law, you know, other people. Only if you're properly treating them as employees would they qualify here as an employee. And that means payroll taxes, quarterly payroll forms that you're showing that you're treating them as employees on your tax return. Are these grants for child care centers? Yes. Yes. So in a child care center that has 15 employees, you'd get $15,000. Now you'd have to use that money for the employees. And we're going to come back to that later when we talk about unemployment. So save that question for later. But yes, if you were still open, you could get $1,000 for each employee and give each employee $1,000, help offset your lost revenue. Question, do we have to have proof of employees? Well, for this program, there doesn't seem to be any requirement for documentation. You just say how many employees you got, and they send you a check for that amount. I have not heard people being asked to provide documentation, but you also signing a statement that says you're not lying, because if you lie on this form, it's fraud and you can go to jail. Question, how much time are providers spending applying for unemployment or a loan? I don't know. It can be very time consuming. That's why I'm trying to make it simpler by going through these applications. Unemployment's another question. Any time you are spending dealing with the virus, you can count towards your time and space percentage. That is the time percentage. Hours you're working in your home when kids are not present can be counted as part of your time percent. And the more hours you work, the higher your percent. Well, if you're closed or working fewer hours, you're losing a lot of hours. Your time percent's going to go down a lot this year. You can help offset some of those lost hours by tracking all the hours you've been spending up until now on things such as being on the phone with the SBA, filling out paperwork, trying to figure out how to fill out unemployment, talking to other providers, talking to parents, doing distance learning with children, cleaning, all that stuff counts. So I would go back and reconstruct the best you can how much time you spent so far on that stuff. And now going forward, as long as you're closed or shorter hours, continue to keep track of this extra time that you're working because of the virus, because that'll help you down the road. Question, if I 1099 my assistant, would she qualify? My understanding is no, but I'm hesitating a little bit. So if you want to send me an email on that question, I will confirm that. My understanding right now is no. 1099 is not an employee for purposes of this loan. Question, so there isn't any regulations on what you spend the money on. True, you're supposed to spend it on something related to your business, but that could be paying the mortgage, paying utilities, paying property tax, paying, water, paying food, because all those things are related to your business. So it's virtually anything related to your business. So I suppose you can't put it into a retirement fund. Question, is there a maximum number of employees to apply? I think it's 100, because I think 100,000 is the upper limit. I think 100 employees is the upper limit. All right, so let's see where we were here. Daycare, 1 employee. Okay, great. So then we go to the next page, and got it too large here. I got to go smaller. All right, so this next page asks, is your business owned by a business entity? No, you own it. Unless, I suppose, you're a child care center and somebody else owns the center, a different structure, corporation, church owns it. Then you check off yes. Then it asks for your owner information again. That's you again. And so that's pretty straightforward. So then we go to the next page, and you're checking no on all these boxes. Have you been convicted of a criminal offense? Are you currently suspended or disbarred? Are you subject to indictment or criminal and so on? No, 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 unless you're a criminal. And then it's asking, did anybody else help you fill out this form? Well, if they did, you put their information down. And then lastly, you check off this box, which is very important. I would like to be considered for an advance of up to $10,000. The advance is what we're talking about, which is forgivable. Up to $10,000 is forgivable, so you got to check the box. Yes, you want the money. But after the form was developed and shortly after this program got launched, so many people applied, they limited how much you could get to $1,000 per employee. So even though it says up to $10,000, you're only going to get $1,000 per employee. Then it says very nicely where to send the funds. So you put your bank name and your account number, which is the number just to the left of your check number at the bottom of your checks. And the routing number is the number on the left-hand side at the bottom of the check. And then they'll send $1,000 right into your bank account. And then lastly, you say, I'm not committing perjury. What follows next is a summary page, and I didn't type out all this information again, just summarizes everything you just entered so far. It allows you to go back and edit if you look back and say, oh, I made a mistake or something. And then you check off I'm not a robot and you send it in, and bang, it goes electronically to the SBA. Question, where can I find the link to the application that I'm talking about? Well, it's the, where am I going here? It's sba.gov, sba.gov. That's where you get the form, all right? Okay. Let's see. I gotta catch up here. Husband to provide his family member, centers. Do we have to have proof of an employee? I don't know that they're gonna ask for proof on this program because it's all online. Okay, I've caught up. All right, so were there any other, let me just go back here. Give me a second. Bring this back up. Whoops, sorry. So, all right. Once you fill it out, wait for them to put money in your bank account. How long is it going to take? We don't know. Originally, the program said 3-day turnaround, but obviously that's not happening. Could be weeks. Could be weeks. We don't know, particularly with this new flood of money coming in, and a lot of people, I assume, are going to apply all at once. We don't know. All right. And we don't know if this money, this $1,000, is taxable income or not. They have not clarified that either. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I hope everybody realizes getting $1,000, even if you have to pay taxes on it, is better than not getting the $1,000. Because whatever tax you pay is going to be a lot less than $1,000, so you're still going to have more money. So some money is better than no money. So if you want the money, take it, it's good. I'm going to move on and talk about the other loan program, unless somebody else can tell me their questions about this loan. All right. So, second program, the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm going to call it the PPP. It's also a forgivable loan. I hope I made it clear that the disaster loan is forgivable. You do not have to pay it back. Here is a link to the application form for the PPP program. You fill out this online form and you take it to your bank, and it's not taxable income. You can get a forgivable loan for up to 2.5 times your monthly lost profit, plus any payroll costs for your employees. And this is called your average monthly payroll. Well, how do we come up with that? We look at your annual profit from your Schedule C. So now, let me go, whoops, let me go find the Schedule C again. Let me get out of that and get into the Schedule C. So here we go. So here's our Schedule C again. Let's shrink it down a little bit and zoom it up a little bit. Schedule C from 2019. Your annual profit is line 31. And in this example, I've said $36,000. Your income minus all your expenses. In the end, that's what's called your net profit or your net income, net profit, net. That's what we're talking about, all right? So you need that number. And for this loan, you must have a Schedule C filled out for 2019. So if you filed your taxes, great, you're in good shape. If you haven't, option number 1, get these filed right away. Option 2 is do your best to estimate this. You probably have a good idea of what income you had for last year. Okay, then estimate your expenses. Now, how would you do that in a short period of time? One thing you could do is take your expenses from 2018 and stick them here in 2019, assuming they're relatively close. That's what I would do as a last resort, so that you can come up with a Schedule C. Even though you're not filing it with the IRS, you're giving it to your bank as an approximation of what your expenses are. All right, so line 31, that's your annual profit from last year. So what are we going to do with that? Here's what we're going to do with it. And let's go back here. Where are we? Slideshow. Okay, so annual profit, line 31. If your annual profit was 36,000, that's coincidentally our example, your average monthly profit was 3,000 because you're dividing your annual profit by 12. And that comes up with your average monthly profit, or 3,000. Then what? We're taking 3,000 and we're multiplying it by 2.5. And that's the maximum amount you can ask for under this loan program, assuming for a minute you don't have employees. If you do have employees, you would put down the average monthly payroll for your employees and add it to the 3,000 before you multiplied it by 2.5. Now, sorry, I keep jumping around here. Hold on. Now I want to show you the application form for this PPP program. Remember, you're downloading this from the SBA website, or you can just Google Paycheck Protection Program and download it. You can fill this out now, tonight, if you want. And here's how you fill it out. At the top, you're checking off who you are. Sole proprietor, if you're likely a family childcare provider, or maybe partnership, C corporation, whatever you are, all right? If you have a business name that you've registered with the state and you have a DBA, doing business as a name, you'd put the name in here. Most family childcare don't, so you just leave it blank. You're putting in your business legal name, which is your name, unless you have an actual legal name that you have registered with the state. And your address, contact information. So here's the deal. Average monthly payroll. So this is the thing that I've been talking about. You say to yourself, well, Tom, I'm a self-employed provider. I don't pay myself. I'm not on payroll. What's the deal? That's why you want to go to last year's Schedule C. It's the average monthly profit from last year. And in our example, I said it went from 36,000 divided by 12 is 3,000. And it gets multiplied here by 2.5. We're going to ignore this for a minute. And that comes up with 7,500. How many employees? You put 1 for yourself. If you have other employees, you put 2, 3, or 4, whatever you got. Then it asks you purpose of the loan. Check more than 1. Well, the purpose is payroll. That's your profit. That's your payroll. Plus what else? You can claim a portion of a lease, rent, or mortgage interest, utilities, and some other expenses. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Then you fill out your name, title, you're the owner, ownership percentage, 100%. You own all of it if you're a family childcare provider. If you're a partnership, you'd split this out. All right. Then it's asking questions, which all the rest of the questions, you're going to answer no. It's not worth going through it. You're just going to answer no. Then what? Then you're just initialing all the rest of this, and all of this is going to be simple to go through. The only thing that might create a problem is, in order to be eligible for this loan, you have to be in business before February 15th of this year. If you started caring for children, not when you got licensed, when you started caring for children, if it was after February 15th of this year, you can't apply for this loan and you're done. So that's the form. That's the form. Obviously, the tricky number is this average monthly payroll amount. Once you fill out this form, you contact your local bank, and they will begin the process of approving your loan. Now, let's go back. Where are we here? All right. Go back, away from current slide. Okay, here we go. So, next. Other expenses. We noted the other expenses, the mortgage interest, the lease, the utilities. Well, a little more specifically, utilities. What can you also use this money for? Gas, electricity, water, internet, telephone, and transportation. This PPP loan is designed to be used over an 8-week period. So you can claim other expenses that you would incur over 8 weeks. Now, for these expenses, except for transportation, you would apply your time-space percent that would represent the business portion of these expenses that you would be able to use the money for. For transportation, if you're driving someplace for these upcoming 8 weeks, you can claim 57.5 cents a mile for those business trips, plus the time-space percentage of your mortgage loan interest or rent, as well as the business portion, time-space percent essentially, of interest on credit cards or car loans over 8 weeks. So here's where it gets a little tricky. And before I explain this, what I would suggest you do is just go through the calculation of your average monthly payroll, the $3,000 in our example, taken from your Schedule C, multiply it by 2.5, check off the other boxes for wanting this money for, and then contact the bank. And then between you and the bank, you go through the process of figuring out what the money is for. But here's an example, I want to illustrate what's going on here. Let's say for 8 weeks, your utilities, all those utilities were $600, mortgage loan interest, $500, credit card interest, $100, total $1,200. Your time space is, let's say 30%, I'm just making that up, is now $360. So you can use some of this PPP money for this $360. You got a total of $7,500. 360 for other expenses, 7,100 now remains for payroll. All right. Now, again, I've written about this on my website in the past. I've continued to update it. I'm going to update it some more. So I wouldn't jump to that article right away. I would say wait a couple days for me to incorporate all the stuff I've been learning today and what I put into this webinar. I'll be writing about it. You can apply for both the disaster loan and the PPP. However, if you get the $1,000 from the disaster loan, that's going to be subtracted from the amount you can get from the PPP loan. So you can apply for both. I don't see any reason why not, because if you don't get the money, you don't get the money. If you do get the money from both, you haven't lost anything. I mean, it's just like, okay, you get 1,000 over here and subtract 1,000 there. You're still going to have the same amount. For the PPP loan, because you're dealing with the bank's going to ask you for more documentation. And this is where it gets a little tricky. If you're hiring somebody, then it's easy to submit documentations regarding payroll forms or pay stubs to say, all right, here's my quarterly 941 tax form, and there are payroll forms that banks can ask for, will ask for, to prove that you're paying employees. But if you're self-employed, you're paying yourself. You're not filling out any payroll forms. There's no documentation you keep for the money that's yours. So I'm not sure what the bank is going to ask for, if anything, with that regard. For these other expenses, utilities, etc., they could certainly ask for evidence of spending on the utilities and so on. At the end of 8 weeks, because that's the period of time that this money can be used for that's forgivable. And at the end of 8 weeks, I assume the bank is going to say, okay, you know, now we want to see these documents on how you spent the money. I don't know how they're going to deal with your payroll for yourself. And then they would sign the paperwork, you would sign the paperwork that says, now this loan is forgivable, you can keep the money, you don't have to pay it back. There have been problems with this program when it first rolled out a few weeks ago, and significant problems for family childcare, because some banks, many banks, were requiring that before they would give you the process this loan for you, you had to have had a separate business account with them before February 15th. And in some cases, an EIN, an employer identification number, and a DBA, a doing business as name, and that is registered with your state. Well, this is craziness. I talked to a provider who said she had an 800 credit score, perfect credit score. She had several different personal checking accounts. She had over $35,000 in one checking account. She'd been doing business in that bank for years and years. Obviously, you know, a good credit risk, and they would not process this loan for her because she didn't have a separate business account. This is not the federal law. This is the bank saying that's the rule that we want to apply for these programs. And in some cases, I think it's because they wanted to favor larger accounts, you know, bigger businesses, corporations that did business with them. They wanted to get them first in line to get this money, and they didn't want to deal with you if you don't have a separate business account. Well, I wrote an article just about this point on my website last week. And I said things like, well, you may want to talk to the bank manager and yell about this. You may want to say, I have a business account with you. It's my personal account that I run all my business through. The fact that it's not separate is not a requirement. You're not required to do that as a self-employed person, and not that many people do. And see what you can do to argue about it, or complain to your state representative, or yell and scream. What else? Well, PayPal and Square have also been approved to process this PPP loan program. So if you know you're going to have a problem with your bank, and you might contact them now, tomorrow, and say, will you take my PPP loan application if I don't have a separate business account? And if they say no, now you know. And then I would go to PayPal or Square. All right, let's pause here. The money you get from PPP is not taxable income. Great, it's not taxable income. So that's really good news. So let me pause again, see what we got here. Question: for the monthly income as a partnership, we pay ourselves each week as well as paying our one employee. So I know how much we each receive. Do I put down that amount? Yeah, this question about partnerships, I just have this nagging feeling that there's some special rule about partnerships. So I don't want to try to answer that. Please send me an email and I will. Question: what guidance would you give a home provider if they tried applying for the PPP loan before and the bank said it was not for them? Well, I think it's unlikely that they're going to say it is now. So therefore, you got to go to PayPal or Square or try a local credit union. I don't know, credit unions in general are easier to get loans for, but maybe they won't deal with you unless you already have an account with them. I don't know. You could try again with a bank, but you may just want to go directly to PayPal. Question, where do you find the form for the PPP? Well, it's there it is. Essentially, go to sba.gov and you'll see where you can get it. Or when I try to go for the form again, I just Google Paycheck Protection Program form, and you'll see it. That's the simplest, quickest way to get it. I should have probably just used that as the link. How do I find out what banks do accept these loans? Good question. I don't know. I think you just start calling around, and you could start calling around tomorrow and try to find out. Question, or you might have to pay it back. Let's see. Let's see. If you get the money and for some reason, you know, the $7,500, and then for some reason you don't spend it on utilities or whatever, or you don't save the records, or the bank is asking you for proof and you can't show the proof, whatever, that's a worst case scenario. Now what? Well, you just give back the money. You know, you can always refuse to accept the money. Now the money comes into your bank and the bank says, now you got $7,500. You can say, well, my circumstances have changed, I don't want it, or I'm not spending it all, I'll give some of it back. You can always do that. And there's no consequence since this is a forgivable loan. All right. What else? In our example, you're asking for $7,500 and that's a forgivable loan. What if you wanted more money than $7,500 for other things that have not yet been covered? In other words, an addition, a deck, a fence, remodeling your kitchen. Well, under this program, you can ask for more money, and it would be a loan that you would have to pay back, but the interest rate is only 1%. Wow. Now, in order to get that loan at 1%, you would have to work that through with your bank. And so the bank is likely to ask for more documents. Sometimes banks will ask for what's called a balance sheet or a profit and loss statement. And most providers go, what the heck is that? Well, my article here has a link to a balance sheet. I created a balance sheet once I heard that banks were asking for this. And so I just defined what each line on a balance sheet meant so that you could fill out your own balance sheet. And then I also have a link to a profit and loss statement, including a template that you could use to fill out so that you can give that to the bank if that's what they're asking for, which they're more likely to ask for if you want to borrow money above and beyond the average monthly payroll. I don't know through PayPal or Square if you're borrowing more money through them. Is that 1% money or not? I don't know. Question. Yeah, I just talked about this. I'm an in-home provider in the middle of doing my basement, had to stop. Does this fall under PPP? Yeah, it does, but it's a 1% loan. All right. So let me pause here because that's what I have to say about these two loans. And after this, we're going to move on to unemployment. So is any other questions about loans?
Yeah, Tom, this is Monique. I have one here. Should we apply for the Paycheck Protection Program even though there currently isn't any money available right away?
Yeah, so I'm glad that question was asked. So here's the deal. Here's why it's fortuitous that you're listening to me right now. Congress, as I said, is set to pass this, and it could pass as early as tomorrow. The president's got to sign it. The SBA has got to get the official notification, and it's got to open up the floodgates. And how long will that take? Maybe as little as a day. It's possible this could be happening by Friday. I don't know if the SBA is open on Saturday, maybe by Monday. Since this has been in the news for the last week and everybody's been talking about how there's no money for them, I expect that everybody and his grandmother is going to apply for this money. So what I would do if I was you is, for the disaster loan, I would go on that SBA website and check it every couple hours. Probably starting, well, wait until you hear the news, the evening news that says the law is passed. Once you hear the law is passed, and I'll be posting this on my website and Facebook page as soon as I hear about it, the law is passed. So then you look on the SBA website to see when they open up the application form for the disaster loan. And as soon as you see that application form appear, bang, start filling it out and send it in as soon as you possibly can. This webinar is being recorded. I don't know how fast they're going to make it available to people so they can go back and look through what I've just said, and they can refer back to the application form. I will send to Monique a copy of the PowerPoint itself, which takes you through each line in the PowerPoint, so you can use that as a guide as well. I would immediately apply for that if you want that $1,000. For the PPP, I would download the form tonight, tomorrow, fill it out. And then tomorrow, Friday, why not? Contact your bank and say, are you accepting applications now? Now, some banks might say, yeah, we're taking them in now, although we can't process them until the money comes through, which may take a couple more days. Or your bank might say, no, we're not accepting any applications until the official word comes down that there is the money. So you want to know that. And maybe the bank is going to tell you that on their website, hopefully, so you don't have to wait on the phone to try to reach somebody. And if it's not, what else? If you're having trouble trying to negotiate their website, if they're not answering their phone, you may want to see if the lobby of their bank is open. The lobby of my bank is not open unless you call for an appointment. Well, if you can't get through, you might drive by the bank, or maybe you know already whether it's open. Or go to the drive-in part and you just ask them, hey, when are you accepting applications? How do I get that in? And you could find out that way. But there's no reason not to fill out the form now. So as soon as your bank is saying we're ready, that you can immediately submit it. And most banks are requiring people to submit this form online. Question, how do you apply through PayPal? Go to PayPal and you should see something about it, or else just search SBA loan. Question, on the PPP program, do you fill it out online? Do you print it off and send it in? You fill it out, you download the form that I showed you, you fill it out in paper, and you send it to the bank. The disaster loan is the one that goes online to the SBA. Question, when filling out the PPP, what is the difference between sole proprietor or using eligible self-employed individual? And well, this is where it's like sort of ridiculous. They really are the same thing. Now, some states will say a sole proprietor is somebody whose name is registered with the state. But from a tax point of view, no, it's the same thing. So it's not going to really make a difference which box you check off there. I think it's simpler to check off sole proprietor. If you want to check off self-employed, it's the same thing. All right, other questions?
That's all I had on my end. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about unemployment. until this new CARES Act was passed in March, self-employed people were not ever entitled to unemployment because you don't pay into the unemployment fund and you can't lay off yourself. So you're out of luck with regards to unemployment. This new law changes that. The new law says self-employed people, including family child care providers and owners of child care centers, can now be eligible for unemployment. And this program is called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, or PUA. Once you apply for state unemployment benefits. You go to the state website. And if you're eligible, then you'll get a certain amount of state benefits plus an additional $600 a week under this new law through the end of July. If you go to this Iowa Workforce Development website, it has general information about how to deal with unemployment as a self-employed person. Now, I listened to the hour-long webinar that this workforce development folks did about this for self-employed people, and it was only somewhat helpful. And this information page is very long. You got all these boxes and whatever. It essentially is telling you where to go to click. If you read through it, it'll say click here to apply, and then you apply. First, in order to get unemployment, you have to show that you earned some income in the past. And so you're going to be asked to produce your Schedule C from either 2019 or 2018 will do just as well. So you can't just have been, sitting in your house doing nothing for the last 2 years and suddenly apply for unemployment. You have to show that you've earned some money and a certain amount of money. Don't worry about the certain amount of money. Just send in the Schedule C and they'll tell you if you're eligible. If you have been closed for a couple of weeks or a month, or it takes you a while to get into the unemployment system, or it takes them a while to get back to you with paying you benefits, you are going to get benefits, state benefits, retroactive to the week you first lost income. So you haven't lost anything by not filing for unemployment so far. The extra $600 will start from the week of March 29th and going forward, assuming you lost income or were closed as of March 29th. So you're not going to get $600 a week for the weeks before March 29th. Unemployment benefits are taxable. Again, it's better to get unemployment than not unemployment from a financial point of view, even if you have to pay taxes on it. Now, what are we going to do here? We got these two grant programs. We got unemployment. What should I do? How do I make sense of all this? In my opinion, I think your best bet is to apply for and get on unemployment. Why? We don't know exactly how much you're going to get from the state for unemployment. I tried to get a ballpark idea by looking at the website, and they're not helpful. It's not clear. So at a minimum, you might get $100 or something from the state. You could get up to $300, $400, $500. And as a maximum, you might get $300, $400, $500, $600. So I'm trying to be very conservative. When you add in that $600, you're going to get conservatively $700 to $900 a week through July 31st. Well, if you're eligible, if you've lost a lot of income, you want to apply. If you're still earning the same amount that you were before the virus, then you're not eligible for unemployment. Or if you've only lost 5% or 10% of your income, maybe that's not enough to qualify. Next, you may want to apply to get the disaster loan money. Now, when you get the $1,000, the week that you get the $1,000, you have to report that as income when you're claiming unemployment. With unemployment, you initially qualify, and then each week you're going to report back to them how much, if anything, you've earned. So you're on unemployment for 3 weeks, whatever. And in the 4th week, you get the $1,000. You report that as income. That's likely to mean you're not eligible for unemployment for that week. But then the next week, you're back to not earning any money, and now you're back onto unemployment. Next, you may want to apply for the PPP, and you can get up to 2 months of your lost profit. Now, before you apply for the PPP, and assuming you're eligible for unemployment, I would get on unemployment. You can see the comparison between what you'd get from PPP and unemployment by going through the process of the application form of the PPP, looking at your average monthly payroll, as we discussed, and in our example, $7,500. Okay, I can get $7,500 for 8 weeks, a total under the PPP. How much would I be getting for unemployment in 8 weeks? And which is going to be more? And if unemployment is more, then I would forget about the PPP. The problem is, if you're thinking about applying for PPP, you want to do that immediately. So you want to apply for unemployment immediately to find out how much you can get. I don't know that you're going to get an answer from unemployment before it's time to apply for the PPP. Therefore, if you're still with me, I would say apply for unemployment immediately and apply for the PPP as soon as you're eligible. If you find out later that you can make more money on unemployment, then you just stop the application process with the bank. You say, okay, forget it. I don't want this money anymore. You can always do that. I'm pausing. What else do I want to say about this? It's confusing. The forms can be confusing. I hope my examples make it a little bit easier to track that. Unemployment, as I tried to sort through the website, and I was thinking of all the questions I had about it, and boy, I couldn't come up with the answers. And I've gotten lots of questions from people across the country and Iowa about unemployment. So let me say a couple final things about it, then I can answer other questions. You should assume that if you've lost a substantial amount of income, 30, 40, 50% or more of your income, you should assume that you're eligible for unemployment. I get calls all the time, am I eligible? Yes, quite probably. Now, Iowa has its own particular rules, and there may be something else that's coming up that might make you ineligible. But to start with, self-employed people, probably you're eligible. And the people on the webinar said every time somebody submitted an unemployment claim through this PUA program for self-employed, they're always granting them unemployment benefits. So apply. How much you're going to get? Not clear. How much can you still earn and still be eligible for unemployment? Not clear. It's complicated. So you just start the process. You answer the questions as they come up, and you do your best to answer the questions and see what happens. If for some reason you're denied and it doesn't make sense to you, you can appeal it. In some cases, because their system is not working at its best efficiency, it's possible you'll be going through the regular unemployment process inadvertently, get denied, but that doesn't mean anything. You still could be eligible, will be eligible under the PUA. So some people say, oh, I just got denied. Well, hold on, wait, you still may well be eligible. And you want to look at this form at the website to see where it says apply as a self-employed person. And that hopefully will take you through the process. Read what it says there. I know it's complicated. I know there's a lot of stuff going on there. Do your best to read that to get through it. All right. Other questions here. What do we got here? Do I use my social security number or tax ID number? Use your tax ID number unless you're specifically asked for your social security. Question, how do you find out if your business name is registered with the state? Contact or go online to your state Secretary of State's office. What you're looking for is either assumed name or DBA or just business name. And there should be a place to do what's called a lookup. And you could put in your name, your business name, and see if it's there, or see if somebody else is using it. If you have a business name, a name that's not your full name, and you haven't registered it, the problem is somebody else could register that name and now you can't use it. So if you have one, you should register. Maybe your state requires you to register it. In Minnesota, you're required to register it. Okay, so do that. But then if you don't remember, you don't know, do that lookup, look for your business name and see if you're there. You probably aren't, because you probably have to pay, you know, an annual fee, or every 5 years you have to pay something to keep it up there, keep it valid, but I'm not sure, so check that out. Question. I'm filling out the disaster loan, and in the declarations section it said, there are no active declarations for the state and county combination you have selected. Is this because no money is available? That's correct. Do I just need to check it every day? That's right. If you try to download, or not download, if you try to fill out the disaster loan application form now, you can't, because it's closed down. That's what you have to look for when it opens up. So yes, that's what it means. No money's available, so we're closed down. If you're down only 1 or 2 children, can you receive unemployment? Well, it depends. It depends, and this is what we don't know the answer to. Maybe if you had 15 kids and you're only down 1 or 2, maybe you probably, I don't know, probably you're not eligible for unemployment. But you only had 3 or 4, and now you're down 1 or 2. Or the 1 or 2 were infants and they were paying you a lot more than the other kids. It's don't worry about whether or not you're eligible. Find out by applying. You're not in trouble for applying. There's nothing counts against you. You're okay if you apply, and in the end you find out that you haven't lost enough money and you're not eligible. Okay, you're not eligible. Question, I applied, but I didn't see anywhere to put my tax information. If you're talking about unemployment, they will ask you. If you're talking about the disaster loan, they're not going to ask you for tax information. If you're talking about the PPP loan, it would only be your bank that would ask for information. Question, what if you've not lost all of your income, but part of it, like $1,200 a month starting April 1st? Well, again, sounds like a lot of money to me. I can't say for sure. I don't know for sure. Go ahead and apply. Question, I know they look at your Schedule C for profit, but do they take into account your expenses? Well, your profit does take into account your expenses. If you're talking about the bank shouldn't care. Let's see. Once you're able to show what your lost profit is on Schedule C, that's all they really need to know. Because, you know, other than showing proof for these other expenses, that's all they're going to look at it for. So with unemployment, would they take into consideration expenses and go off net income? That's also not clear, because this webinar, they answered it differently. At one time they said they're going to look at your net income. The other time they said they're going to look at your gross income. So I don't know the answer, because they give contradictory answers. I don't know. Whatever they ask you for, give them that. Question, are home providers eligible for unemployment if they choose to close and keep their families safe and healthy, rather than being mandated to close or having all families stop coming? Good question. The answer is yes. You say, I don't want to take risks anymore. I'm closing down. I don't have to close. Parents want to come to my program. The government hasn't shut me down, but I want to close. Are you eligible for unemployment? Yes. Yes, you are. Question, can you claim unemployment if you have half of your family's not coming? Well, it's the same answer, probably. For March and April, I would have lost $1,500. Should I apply for unemployment? Yes. As for unemployment, what if there's still a few parents who are still paying, but some that are not? That's okay. Whatever you're earning, you would report to unemployment, and they would tell you whether or not you're eligible. Question, would unemployment go off gross or net? We don't know. Can you apply for the disaster loan and unemployment? Yes, but the week you get the disaster loan, you probably won't be able to get unemployment, but then you can go back on unemployment. How does underemployment impact unemployment? In other words, you're caring for fewer children, some, but not all, earning some income. Well, the benefit that you get starts with how much you made in the past, and then how much you're making now. And so let's say you're not making anything. You're going to get a certain amount of a benefit. Next week, you earn $100 a week, let's say $200 a week. Your benefit is likely to go down. Next week, you earn $400 a week. Well, your benefit's going to go down again. So it depends. There's a formula that's too complicated to try to explain, but underemployed versus not earning any income, that's taken into account in determining your benefit. Now remember, whatever your benefit is, let's say your state benefit goes down to $25 a week, but you're still going to get the extra $600. So at a minimum, you're going to get $600 plus something if you get on unemployment. And that's why I think you want to get unemployment, to get it through the end of July. All right. Question, I'm filling out the disaster loan. And, okay, same question. Question, there's a severance pay line on the unemployment claim form and a vacation pay line, and they both say gross wages. What would you put for your gross income on it? Well, the vacation pay is only if you have employees and are paying vacation pay to employees. The severance line is only if you fired employees. So it doesn't have anything to do as an individual if you are self-employed. Question, if we get someone at the workforce, should we say PUA? Is that what you fall under? Yes, exactly. Those are the magic words or letters. PUA, PUA. That is the name of the federal program that provides for the first time unemployment benefits to the self-employed. Yes. Aren't credit scores supposed to be untouched when applying for pandemic assistance? Yes, the disaster loan says something about credit, but it's not, nobody's paying attention to it. So I would say credit scores are irrelevant when applying for these loans. And credit scores are certainly irrelevant when applying for unemployment. Question, I have a parent that pays me monthly. Do I apply that to 1 week or break it out over 4 weeks? That's a good question. I think it's applied to 1 week and in the week you get the money. But that's a good question. Each state might handle that differently because that's really payment for 4 weeks. Do you spread the payment out over 4 weeks and that therefore make it less likely that you'll get kicked off unemployment? Or you might be able to get a better deal under unemployment if it's spread over 4 weeks. And I don't know the answer to that. And maybe when you get in there and are doing the unemployment process, maybe it'll answer that question, one-time payments or monthly payments, if you will. All right, those are the end of the questions. Monique, any other questions?
No, I don't have any on my side. Paige, have you seen anything that you have?
I have not.
Okay, so we have a few more minutes. If somebody wants to talk to me and say, make a comment or ask a question, raise your hand. And I'll be scanning and see if anybody's raised their hand. And if your hand is raised, I'll unmute your mic and then you can speak to me. You can continue to ask questions. Oh, here we go. Here's some more questions. Continue to ask questions in the question box or raise your hand and I'll try to get to you. So we got some more written questions. Question. So when we apply, don't we put an amount on the vacation spot or severance spot? Not unless you have hired people or laid people off. Question. Credit score question. A provider said their credit score was negatively impacted by applying for a targeted SBA loan. Well, that's different. The SBA has other loan programs that they've had for a long time. I've just talked about the two special new loan programs that family childcare providers are most likely probably eligible for. So there's a targeted SBA loan. There's other SBA loan programs out there for small businesses. And probably in every case, you're dealing with a loan officer and your credit score does matter. But for the two loans I'm talking about, I don't think they matter at all. Question, when they ask you what you earned this week, do you give them the total cash received? What about our expenses? Well, that goes to the question of, do they take into account expenses? You took in, $200 this week, but you had to spend money on food. Can't you subtract the food? I don't know. The webinar that I listened to answered it both ways. I don't know. You'd have to look to see, hopefully somewhere in those instructions that I linked to, they answer that question. I couldn't see the answer. Question, if you are a center and pay zero contribution into Iowa workforce and have employees receiving unemployment, does the center get charged then for the employees' unemployment amounts? Well, you have employees, but you haven't been contributing to unemployment. I assume that means you're a church-based program, perhaps, nonprofit program, perhaps, I don't know. Under this new law, it's more likely that these people are eligible for unemployment. Assuming they are, is that going to mean you're going to now be charged and have to pay the unemployment tax? Don't know. We don't know if with all these unemployed people now, is that going to raise the unemployment rate, tax rate, that employers are going to have to pay down the road? We don't know for sure. I think it's possible with this economic disaster continuing on. That's possible. I'm sorry, I don't know. Question, people are complaining about not getting through to unemployment. Any suggestions? Wow. Well, I would start by talking to your state representative and complain. They're supposed to represent you. They have a constituent service person there who's supposed to help their people. And so, hey, you're my representative. Unemployment is not doing its job. I can't get through. They're not answering my question, whatever. Can you help me? This is my question. Can you call them? Can you contact your person and get back to me with an answer? That would be, if you're getting very frustrated with unemployment, that's what I would do. Question, with the PPP loan, I heard if you don't use all the money, you may pay it back as a loan 1% for 2 years with payments deferred for 6 months. That is correct. So if you, in our example, you get the $7,500, you don't use it all in 8 weeks, but you want to keep it. You could return it. You could return the money you didn't use, and then you're back to zero. The amount you did use is forgivable, but you're paying some of it back. Or you might say, well, there's an extra $1,000, $2,000 here that I'd like to use for something else. Now that turns into a loan at 1%, that is true, that you'd have to pay back in 2 years, that is true, and you wouldn't have to make any payments on that loan for the next 6 months, also true. So that's a pretty good deal. So if you have, if your profit is relatively high from last year and you have some other projects you want to do, you want to spend some money on, and we're planning to do it anyway, this is the best way possible to get a loan for that. You are right. Okay. CJ Walker, I'm unmuting your mic. Now you can talk to me.
Okay, I was told today by unemployment that you do not have to claim what you're making off of any of your kids you still have, because you do not have to claim self-employment. But I'm wondering if you also work for another employer, you know, like very minimal, do you have to claim that?
So repeat what you said. So if I'm caring for one child and making $100 a week, are you saying they don't have to report that as income?
That's what they told me at unemployment today. I did unemployment
Wow.
review or whatever today, and that's exactly what they told me. They said that is self-employment, so you do not have to count your self-employment.
Wow. Well, that's terrific. So I'm glad you said that. So now, okay, I didn't know that. So great. So don't worry for everybody's questions about how many kids they've lost and should I apply, how much money I've lost and should I apply, go for it, because it's not going to count against you. Terrific.
And I'm in Iowa, by the way.
Okay, good. And
I
the
don't know if
second
that matters. I'm in Iowa.
Yeah, we're talking Iowa here. So the second part of what you just said, I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So then I also have, I take care of my brother-in-law that has mental retardation. So I'm also considered his employee, even though it's very minimal, you know, money.
Yep.
But do I have to count that? Because I guess we never talked about that.
Right. Well, traditionally, I think the answer is yes, you'd have to count that, because traditionally, under normal unemployment rules, if you're making some money over somewhere, you got to report it. Whether it's, you know, your hours were cut down from your first job, or you have another part-time, you know, you're an employee at 2 different places. Yeah, I think you do, because yes, that's part of the formula to determine how much you're going to get. And when they told you that self-employed people don't have to report it, the implicit message also is, if you're not self-employed, you have to report it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here. Anybody else? Oh, Regina Selly, go ahead. Can you hear me? Hello, Regina. Nope. Going once, going twice. All right. Vicky Harris. Vicky Harris, talk to me.
Oh, sorry. I thought I put my hand down. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nobody wants to talk to me. All right. Question. Talked to several state legislators. They're willing to try to get some answers to some of these issues and willing to talk to the department. Family childcare is a unique situation. You're right. Terrific. Excellent. That's what we need to get some answers. Question. Can the lady CJ Walker said she spoke to Iowa Workforce tell us how long it took them to contact her? Well, CJ, why don't you put something in the question box about that? Question, I did put money into the vacation severance spot. How do I go back and change that? I don't know. This is one of those things, how do you fix something under unemployment? Sorry, I don't know enough about the Iowa unemployment process. Question, if you haven't applied for unemployment, how far back can you go? I think it's January 20th, but I'm guessing on that. What you would do is simply, when you apply, put down the week that you think the week that you first lost a bunch of money, and they'll tell you. I'm guessing January 20th. I don't know why that sticks in my mind, but maybe it's later than that. Anyway, put down the week that you want the money for, and then they'll tell you whether that's right or wrong. Okay, we are just about out of time here. I'm scrolling, looking for anybody else. That's it. So again, your Iowa Resource and Referral website has information as well. This is my contact information. Again, you want to call me, you want to send me an email. Your question might be answered on my website. go to my Facebook page. You be my friend, I'll be your friend. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Great information. Thanks, Tom.
The PowerPoint will be available. I will pass that on, and it's also being recorded.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Tom, we really thank you for all your information. And like you said, reach out to us, reach out to your local childcare consultant, check our website, or reach out to Tom if you have questions. I know this is a kind of a crazy time that we keep hearing about. So we are in this together and we can kind of figure this out, and we'll do the best that we can to help you. So thank you guys all for joining us. Like Tom said, we are recording this. It will be up on our website, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. So if you need to go back and listen to something, we'll send out the slides to the email that you registered for this training for. So and all the links and stuff that were in the chat that Kim put there for us, we'll get to you too. So thanks again so much for coming, and we hope you have a great night. Stay well, stay healthy, and until we meet again, so long.
Bye now.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.